education, world religions and new thought, Christianity, and welcome to you online, and welcome to you that are here in person.
I thought you were talking specifically.
Touchdown, Jesus! All right. Okay. So, what I'm going to be speaking on today, my name is John Bruacher, and we're going to be, this is the first and only week I'm doing this, but as I got into this book, it's called Sound Healing for Beginners by Joshua Goldman and Alex Sims. And Joshua Goldman is Jonathan Goldman's son, who has written extensively on sound healing. And part of the reason why they came up with Begin for Beginners is because they even consider themselves to be beginners, because it's not a highly developed. There is a lot of science behind it, but not science that was funded specifically to test sound healing. You know what I mean? Like, the way that pharmaceutical companies and medical schools will, fund certain scientific studies that are just very specific. So a lot of their studies are peripheral to sound healing, but do have to do with physics and sound and biology and healing and so on and so forth. But, and there's, as I got into it, there's so much. There's so much. It's kind of a, could you get that door? Thank you. It's about mindfulness of sound. It's about intent. It's about focus, awareness, and it's also about self-knowledge. And truly, the best way to do the healing is the healing that we do for ourselves. And so it's very nice that they're sharing a lot of this information to start with. And the other thing I found out is that I've experienced a lot of the sound healing without calling it that in my life. As I go through and as I was reading the book, I've done that before. So you'll probably have some of those recognition experiences as we go through some of this. So in the introduction, there's quotes. Energy is the common medium of the body, mind, and soul. Its wavelengths, rates of vibration, and patterns of pulsation form a common vocabulary, much as the fluctuations of tone and tempo form the vocabulary of music. The more fluent you become in sensing the shared vocabulary of the body, mind, and soul, the more skillfully you can orchestrate their lifelong symphony and the way that they integrate with each other. So we can start off the first minute, as they do, just looking at the physical energy of sound. Some of the just science or the description of what we know about sound. So sound is measured by frequency. So that's the vibrations per seconds, and they're measured in hertz. And the human ear typically can hear between, before we age and have some other difficulties.
Don't even go there.
Or before we damage them with really loud rock and roll. is about 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. Is a typical human hearing range. A piano goes from 27.5 hertz to 4,186 hertz, from the lowest key to the highest key. Bats and dolphins and some other creatures like that hear from 20,000 to 100,000 hertz. Loudness is measured in amplitude, which, if you look at a wave, the number of humps is the frequency. The height of the humps is the amplitude. And that's measured in decibels, in terms of how loud sound is. The sound of breathing is about 10 decibels. And decibels also is measured, as a measurement, is similar to earthquakes in that when it goes up in numbers, it goes up by the power of the number. Logarithmically rather than just additive. A whisper is 30 decibels. Normal conversations, 50 to 65. Dishwasher, vacuum cleaner, 70 to 75. Car horns, 110. We typically experience pain starts around 120 decibels. And
Pain where? Pain where?
Ear.
When your ears start hurting.
How about rock music? How about rock music? I'm fine.
I mean, the decibels is about the same.
What is it?
Of course, if you're somewhat artificially intoxicated or something, you may not realize that the pain damages. Prolonged experience to 90 decibels or higher starts to damage the ears. Jet engines and gun blasts are way over 120 decibels. So just to get a little bit of sense. So, and we have some more language that we're going to talk about too that has to do with sound. Resonance is the vibration of sound, the frequency in multiples. So, like I used to tune my guitar to itself before I had a tuner on my phone. So I would, get what I thought sounded like a low E, and then I would dampen that string at the third fret, and then go to the next string, and wait till and tune that next string up until it started to vibrate when I struck the E string, and so on and so forth, so that the guitar was tuned to itself. It wasn't necessarily in tune, but it was in tune to itself.
Right. And
On a piano, and I had never known this before I read this book, but you know those little foot pedals, dampers on a piano, what they do is they release the damper on the strings of the piano, so whatever keys that you do hit, any of the multiple frequencies will resonate on the strings of the piano. So extra, even strings that you don't hit with your keys will resonate if they're one of those multiples of frequency. For example, if you have a string that's 100 hertz, every string that's 200, 300, 400, 500 will resonate to that, because there are multiples of that frequency. So resonance is a term that is important. entrainment, which is really fascinating, because entrainment is a form of resonance which gets used in the healing process. So, entrainment is when something has powerful vibrations of one object will actually change the vibrations of another object, causing the second object to lock in step or synchronize with the first. And this was shown first by a physicist called Huygens. He's a fellow Dutch physicist. And he had these clocks that had the old-time clocks that you wound up and it had the little thing going back and forth. Pendulum clocks. And he had 6 of these clocks in this room, and he started them all at different times. So they were not at all in sequence. And then he came back a few hours later, and they were all in sequence, following the largest of the clocks. And they were all just exactly in sequence. And so that the largest clock just had, it was a grandfather clock. Somehow the other ones just followed right.
The loudest.
Yeah, it was loudest and had more vibrations, and so the other pendulums all went in. Yeah. I don't know where the other ones, oh, there it is.
So, when I was in my 40s and had my first divorce, and I decided to try a lot of different things. So I'd never been to a concert, and so I did not like heavy metal music or hard rock music, but I went to a Guns N' Roses concert just to see just to get the experience. And after I left there, my whole body and my whole sense of being and self was off for about a week. I just couldn't get my energy balance for a while. So is that what you're talking about? Where
Sure.
Okay.
Sure, and a rock concert, I was, the loudest concert I ever went to was Mahavishnu Orchestra, John Bruacher. And it was louder than Grateful Dead. They had these huge Marshall amps on the stage that were 8 foot tall and 8 foot wide on either side, and it was you just would vibrate.
More noise than a jet engine, huh?
Oh my God, I don't know. I've not been outside while a jet engine was going on right next to me, before. But it was loud.
So the louder the rock concert, you might have to get up and dance.
You might, yeah.
We didn't even sit down, there was no seats.
You might have to.
Right. And so the other thing about entrainment is that our body organs are subject to entrainment. And of course, everything has a vibration. That table is vibrating right now. It's not within the 20 to 20,000 hertz, so we can't hear it. But it is vibrating. And our touch isn't sensitive enough to feel it, but if it were, it would feel. And there are electrons that are going at least this high above it that are moving and vibrating in some kind of a sequence that again is beyond our sensory perception at this point in time.
Strangest.
And so all of our organs, all of our body organs are the same. Everything has this vibration that's going on. And so everything, all our body including our brain and our heart and our lungs, are all subject to entrainment. It's one of the reasons why when you do a meditation exercise and you choose, you can change your heart rate by the way you breathe. You can change your breath rate by the, how you behave physically. You can calm your thinking by changing your heart rate and your breathing, and your thinking can change your heart rate. If you start thinking, oh my gosh, oh, this is horrible, and then all of a sudden your heart rate starts to go up. So all of these, the brain, the heart, and the lungs, all interact, plus are subject to external vibrations.
Several times I have evidently raised my vibration because I would realize that I had dangly earrings on, they were vibrating.
Yes. Yes, and because they were also close to your ear, plus there's some, your face, there's a lot of nerve cells in our face that can feel touch a little more sensitive than other parts of our body. Harmonics. Okay, this is another sound term that I had heard, but I didn't really understand it before I read this book. So, harmonics is, so do you know what a sine wave is? It's just a simple up and down wave and the sine wave almost, in terms of sound, does not exist in the physical reality. It's really a theoretical concept, a mathematical concept. But and in terms of sound, almost we have the closest thing we have. Remember the old emergency broadcast tone? That was close to a sine wave. It was just kind of, and it was pretty pure, but still not. There's still like some overlapping waves that made it not just be a crisp, clear, single line.
So how do you spell that? S-I-G-N?
S-I-N-E.
S-I-N-E.
And and so this harmonics is what gives sound richness and quality, and it's the overlapping of these waves that gives some texture to sound, and what makes a clarinet sound like a clarinet, and a trumpet like a trumpet, and a piano like a piano. They all can be played the same note, but they sound different because of harmonics. Because there's different, they can have the same frequency, it can be the same note, but the waves are coming in differently, and there's more than one wave, actually, that's overlapping with the other wave that give it the quality of the sound, and that's harmonics. And yes.
So when you were talking earlier, I was thinking, when you said that we're subject, to change with those waves, I wondered if we change with everything. What I was thinking about, was the bridge, that when there was a wind that went by at a certain, I guess, harmonic frequency, the bridge was destroyed.
Yeah. Because
the bridge was somehow in tune to that, and it amplified it. And that's what I wondered, if we're not in tune to something, the bridge was there and all kinds of winds and harmonics went by and it was fine until that particular one went by. So are we subject to everything?
Okay, so now that's resonance. That's an example of resonance.
Okay.
Like when a soprano sings a certain note that it can break less.
Mm-hmm.
It's when it matches the frequency of the actual vibration that's currently going on in the glass. But the soprano amps up the amplitude of that same frequency, and the glass starts to vibrate until it breaks. Because glass is very rigid. It's hard, but it's very rigid, so it's subject to breaking when the vibration.
So the more rigid we are, we will break at a certain point.
Absolutely. And flexibility is another concept that we'll be touching on in this. So, because. So that's
What?
harmonics.
John, what's the difference between harmonics and disharmonics? Is that,
I don't know.
or?
I'm a beginner.
Oh, okay. I understand discord.
Okay, so we'll touch on that because and I think that the way that Joshua Goldman and Alex Sims would say, that's really a perceptual judgment, the disharmonics. And I'll tell you why here in just a few minutes. So then, the other physical part that we're going to get, the more scientific basics that we're going to talk about is, one is the miracle of hearing. The fact that we can even hear is, to me, miraculous. When you look at the moving parts that are in the human body that allow us to hear. So we have the outer ear, which kind of, it's shaped to kind of collect, some vibrations that are in the air. And then it comes into the eardrum, middle ear, the hammer, handle, and stirrup, which vibrate. So they pick up the vibrations, the sound vibrations, and then they start to vibrate. So they're resonant pieces of human flesh that start vibrating. And then they vibrate the fluid in the cochlea, which then vibrates the basilar membrane, which is like a drum membrane, and then that causes the cilia, which are little hairs, to bend, and then that creates or stimulates electrochemical impulses to go through the auditory nerve, which then goes to the brain, and we experience sound.
Very complicated.
Yeah.
How amazing are we just sitting here?
I don't know. I don't
Wow.
know. And in the book, he's got a little, the picture of the whole setup, and it's just amazing. It's just truly wild. And so, as we get into the sound thing and this whole thing, the first exercise that, and there's a ton of exercises. This book would be a great spirit group because you could spend 20, 30 weeks just going through this and working on exercises and stuff. I don't have the time to do it at this point, but it's there's just so much cool stuff in here. So the first step is really sound awareness. So this is a hearing meditation. It has two parts. The first part is unlisten, and then you listen. Unlisten.
Oh,
So unlistening means clearing sounds from their association. Okay. Because sounds, we have a learning history with sound. So we make assumptions that we have physiological responses and emotional responses and cognitive responses, thinking responses to sound. with, you know, that just happens automatically, we don't think about it. But, you know, I mean, you know that when you see a movie and they have a soundtrack that goes with it, you know in a scary movie they have the tense music that makes you start, oh, somebody's gonna get it, you know, and those sounds, you know, those thoughts will go through your mind automatically, subliminally. And so this is about getting, you know, just, and there's sound everywhere, all the time. So you just, so the things that are unconscious, what you do, you make them conscious. If a bird song means replenishment, you know, I mean, that's one of my favorite things is waking up in the morning and hearing the birds. And it's a very pleasant, you know, it's so great to be alive. And those kinds of positive, but he's asking us to just to hold off of that a little bit and just take away even the positive things. Go ahead.
Well, I would just, is this on?
Yes, it is.
I'd just like to comment on this because at this point, because I had an experience one time, I have no idea.
A little closer.
I had an experience one time, I had no idea what caused it. I think I had the question of, I heard somewhere that all sound was beautiful maybe, I'm not really sure. But one day, unsolicited, it was a normal day, I was taking my niece to the library, and when I opened the door of my car, all of a sudden, every sound was so beautiful. And I'm talking about the opening of the door, the sound the door made, when a car went by, they were all equally beautiful, and it was extremely peaceful, and I do not know what that was, but it didn't matter what the object was or what was going on, it was just immensely beautiful.
And so what they would say, the authors of this book, would say is that how we choose to respond to sound is our power. That's our healing power, is that we have a choice to consciously respond the way we choose. And at that time, for whatever reason, you were, you know, and there was probably some biochemical something that went on that gave you some really nice feel-good neurotransmitters that went through your body during those times when all the sounds, and you were also focusing on sound at the same time. And a lot of the concept that we're going to talk about, that they're talking in here, you could apply it to any sense, really, including sixth and seventh senses, and 8 and 9 and 10, because there's a lot more senses than just the common 5 senses that we. So maybe it's not possible to strip all the layers of meaning away from sounds, but at least you can evaporate the surface spots. The more completely you do this, the more sound will reveal its true nature. The act of identifying your psychological response is the ticket to an even deeper response. So when we remove those surface responses, you can lean in a little bit deeper.
So you were talking about the louder the sound at certain levels can actually damage you and stuff. So if what you're saying is true and you can regulate how the sound is, could you be in a place that had loud, way above and it not affect you? Do you get what I'm saying? No, I'm not talking about physically.
Well, physics is physics. So those little cilia hairs and the middle ear components that vibrate, they can be damaged physically by stuff. And I mean, conceptually speaking, yes, what you're saying is true. But I wouldn't want to count on it. I'm not going to risk that myself, because I also am not as attracted to really loud noise, loud music as I was when I was younger. But also, I don't want to, I've had the experience where my hearing was numbed from really loud sounds. And so one of the things to take away some of the judgment, I've started to think in terms of sound rather than noise or music or, it's just there's sound as something that hasn't not yet been interpreted yet, prior to interpretation.
So the guy with no muffler going down my street is as lovely as the mourning dove.
I wouldn't say so. However, one can, and I got into this, I forget his name, he was a Catholic monk, but he lived in the city, and he talked about meditating to sirens and to, the noisiness of a New York City street. And it's something that can be certainly meditated on or be, experienced without judgment. Not necessarily that it's all wonderful, but you can take away the judgment.
I see what you mean. When we lived down on the farm and we were out in the middle of nowhere, no traffic sounds, none of that. And we had a friend that lived in Arizona that came to visit, and he could not sleep because the crickets were so loud. And he could not hear sirens, and he could not hear cars, and he could not sleep because of that.
And vice versa too.
Yeah, I've experienced it both. My mom came to visit me in Poplar. I lived 15 miles out of Poplar Bluff. And she came down from Chicago
Oh,
and stayed with us. And she couldn't sleep because it was too dark. And because we had a street light, but I told the power company not to turn it on, so I left it off. And you could see stars everywhere, but the crickets and the frogs and everything were pretty noisy, and she couldn't sleep. And then another time, I was living in southern Illinois at the time. My brother was living on the north side of Chicago, and I stayed with he and his wife. And I couldn't sleep because there were ambulances going everywhere, all over the place. The next morning when they woke up, I said, "What happened last night? What were all those ambulances?" And they were going, "Well, I don't know what you're talking about. It's normal."
So I guess what I'm hearing through this conversation is it's kind of like any spiritual practice. You have to clear your mind before you can begin to put something different, do something different.
To increase your awareness of what is.
Once you're focused on something, other things disappear.
When I was young, my grandparents, is this on? It doesn't?
Yeah.
It is, okay. Okay.
You gotta put it in your mouth.
I don't know, it doesn't seem.
No, it doesn't. I don't.
it doesn't, didn't seem like.
Yeah, I'm not picking anything up. Anyway, I'll pretend like this is working.
Is it like?
And kind of talk loud. But when I was young, my grandparents lived right next, a stone's throw away, literally, from railroad tracks. And this is back when they had passenger trains before Amtrak was even thought of, and of course freight trains. And it was a little old rickety house, and that house would shake to
Mine
no
does.
end.
Mine shakes.
And of course, the noise was incredible with the blaring of the horn, with the cars running down this track. And I would go over there and stay overnight, and of course I was used to it, so slept through the night just fine. But when I brought a friend over there, that friend couldn't sleep at all. So it's a, you know, it was like, what was that? What was what?
So what that means is we're adaptable, if nothing else.
Yeah.
So we have to take into account that adaptation that we have to increase our awareness to what it is that's present in our environment, both internal as well as external.
That,
I think she would get batteries maybe.
that's all right. I'll talk louder.
Get loud, Don!
Yeah.
Just get up there and yell in John's microphone.
The adaptability is really, really quite pronounced in humans. There are, I had a sister-in-law that lived right at the railroad tracks, and it would shake the house.
Mm-hmm.
They would stop their conversations until the train went by, and then continue on the same sentence after the train was gone.
Yeah. Help their memory.
Yeah, it was just absolutely phenomenal. They would stop as long as the train was there in the middle of a sentence, and then pick it up after the train was gone,
Yeah.
ignoring the whole thing.
Don, I lived with a bunch of girlfriends directly in a second floor apartment, directly underneath the landing pattern of Los Angeles Airport, LAX. And only a few miles from the airport. So the planes would come in really low over the top of our apartments, and you just had to stop. You had to stop talking and wait till it got past, and then you could start again.
So how'd you know when there was an earthquake?
You certainly
Jared,
couldn't
I
hear
asked
it.
this.
You couldn't hear it.
Jared.
Well, I think Carla hit it on the head. Remember, she said all noises were the same noise in a different frequency vibration. And we can attune ourselves actually within 24 hours to anything that's happening. Because we know that if we have to go out and survive, within 24 years we can sleep underneath a bush. Within 24 hours we can sleep underneath a bush and be able to get up and go out and do something about our lives that is different from what we were doing the day before. We're just so adaptable. This is what keeps us alive here on this planet.
Yeah, well, an individual adaptation is very individual. And, okay.
Well, whenever I was moved from Ozark Highlands down here to Strappy, the first 2.5 months I lived there, the train comes by there and all the highway noise. Least little thing to wake me up.
You lived right on the highway.
But but after 3 months, I could just sleep through it all. Train horns and everything. It didn't bother me a bit. So once you get used to it, loud noises just don't affect you.
Okay. Next thing is subtle energy. So, for instance, the sound that's going through this electric cord down here, it's plugged in. The 120 alternating current, 120 hertz alternating current that's going on. We don't notice it. But have you ever noticed what it sounds like? It's a different kind of quiet when the power goes off in your home. So not only, I mean, part of it is the refrigerator and the hot water heater, which we don't really notice a lot anyways, unless we pay attention to them. But then when the power goes off, even the vibrations of the circulatory system of our electricity in the house is turned off, no longer pulsing. That's the addition.
Yeah.
Is that what they call white noise?
White noise is all noise, all frequencies, or most frequencies all at once.
Oh,
So whether it's like the sound of the ocean and wind and the things that you know, a fan, a loud fan, it's actually a combination of a whole lot of frequencies together.
I've lived in 3 houses out in the country, or near where I built my house out in the country. And 2 of them had no electricity whatsoever, not even solar power. The other one just had solar and wind power. And it is very, very different, very, very strange to live in a place where you don't hear those noises nor feel that vibration. It's definitely eye-opening and ear challenging.
There's a study done with some meditators, expert meditators. Some were from England and some were from the United States, and they were trying to tap into what is, you know, the baseline universal vibration, you know, that's, you know, from God or whatever, from the earth. But they came up with different numbers. It turns out that the numbers they came up with, frequencies they came up with, were the differences between European electricity in their homes and the United States.
50 and 60
Frequencies,
cycles, yeah.
yes, the different cycles that they were on.
Wow.
And that's what they were actually being able to notice.
So electricity is our God.
So, well, it's a part of it. Then there's mysticism of sound. There's a deaf percussionist, Evelyn Glennie, said hearing is a form of touch. And of course, that's the only way she could experience sound. Was tactile. But she says, all sound is literally touching, enveloping, somewhat going through.
That must explain why my cat can hear a noise that I can't even come close to hearing.
Well, they also have a wider frequency range of hearing with their ears, too. But, yeah, and it could, or it could be, it might be in their whiskers, too. Because their whiskers are also have
Yeah, 'cause
pick up a sense of sound.
You'll be sound asleep and all of a sudden, you know,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm like, what?
So then, he determines, or he writes that music, he defines music as organized sound, intentionally organized sound. And of course, there's different kinds of music that, music is in all cultures, but they have different rhythms and different tonalities in music from all around the world, different cultures. But what they have in common is that they are organized. And then he differentiates, or they differentiate, hearing versus listening. So hearing is the passive, basic perceptual activity. Without the rest of without any kind of response, without any and without any intention. Listening opens up an unending number of ways that sound can be perceived. A number of different spiritual ways, a number of different physical ways, a number of different cognitive, emotional, tactile, it just opened, there's just an endless number of ways that we can listen. Focusing on one thing. When I was a kid, we used to go to the Chicago Symphony a few times a year when I was in like grade school. And I remember trying to focus on a certain instrument in the orchestra and just focus and just listen to like I was really fascinated by the harp. And other times I'd be whatever, depending on what was going on, what they were playing, but I would, kind of focus in on just one instrument. And you could kind of, you heard some of the others, but you could amplify with your own mind a specific instrument. And I assume that's something that anybody can do if they practice.
When I went to hear the Dalai Lama, we were way up in the balcony, and the people around me were saying they couldn't hear him, and I could hear everything he said. And I think it was because when you're in an avatar course, you're in a room with, I don't know, several thousand people, and you're doing an exercise with someone, and so you're focused, and you don't even, you cross everything else out. And I think that had trained me enough that I could just put my attention on the Dalai Lama when he was speaking, and I didn't hear the other noises around. So yeah, you can train yourself to just hear, and I was amazed that other people were saying they couldn't hear him, because I just thought it was obvious that you could hear everything he said, but I realized that was the training that I had gone through that allowed me to focus on that.
And I think those of us that have some qualities of ADD have that ability to micro-focus on something too. So, part of it's focus, part of it's practice, part of it's genetically random. There's so many different factors that can come into it. But that's what makes, this world so rich and varied. Okay, so sound, hearing. Sound is an energetic nutrient. So the Benedictine monks in the 1960s, in the early 1960s, the Catholic Church went through the Second Vatican thing. And so there's some major changes. And one of the things that one of these Benedictine monks in France, their head person said, they don't need to chant anymore. We've come into the 20th century. They can give up chanting. And a really curious thing happened. They started to lose energy. They weren't getting their work done. They were sleeping. They had chronic fatigue, symptoms of chronic fatigue. And so they brought in some doctors. It was concern. It raised went to some of the higher ups, and they go, wow, we got to help these folks, these guys. So they brought these doctors in, they said, wow, they need more sleep. But then they got worse, of course. So they brought in another doctor, and they said, oh, they need to add meat to their diet. They've been living this pretty much vegan lifestyle, and they need more meat. And that did nothing. It didn't make them worse. It didn't make them any better. It didn't change anything. So they're months into this, going into years, and they brought in this person called Alfred Tomatis, and he had done some research on sound and stuff. And so after he was there for just a couple weeks, he goes, oh, they need to start chanting. So he got them to reinstate the chanting. And within 6 months, they were all back to base level, back to where before they had stopped chanting.
Wow. Just a few weeks ago, again, I don't think this is working, but a few weeks ago, Sue and I
It
went.
was when we got it up.
What? Hello? Hello?
Down.
Nothing.
They just came in and fixed it.
Okay. Well, I thought it picked up
He
too.
doesn't
when-
believe.
yeah.
Is the light
I
on?
didn't
Is it
believe.
turned on?
Yeah, lights on.
Okay.
So anyway, we went to the People's Unity Convention in Kansas City, and there was a person there, a woman, who did what she called sound baths, and I had never experienced that before, and we did it at the very end of the convention, so she had done previous ones, but you go through, it was probably about an hour and a half of, you can lie or sit or, you know, whatever you want to do, and all the lights are off and there's kind of a light show going on, as well as her just doing the instruments. And so she takes crystal bowls and Tibetan bowls, and I couldn't tell you the instruments, nothing electronic, everything acoustic. And she would walk around, if you're laying down, she would place like the bowl as it's resonating on my stomach. And so you're getting a physical resonance as well as you are through all of your body. And I'll tell you what, that was the most healing feeling I have maybe ever experienced. It was unreal, and I'd love to bring her here because she's from Kansas City, but I would love to bring her here and
Do it.
let people experience that. And afterwards I thought, oh wow, if I would have only known, I would have cheated and gone to all of her sessions. Because both Sue and I said, this is the best thing that we experienced at the convention. There was a lot of incredible things there. So,
Perfect, yes.
I'll let you hold the microphone.
And sound baths are cool.
What key was it? Was the sound?
I don't know. I mean,
Okay,
they were all
so-
different instruments.
Yeah, and we're gonna, and there's a whole technology on that, and then I'm also gonna get into, so sound versus noise. I gotta roll because
Oh, yeah.
it's already after 10, and I'm not even a third of the way through. So there's sound versus noise. Noise is unwanted sound. Okay, so it's a judgment call. And sonic transmutation is the conscious transformation of noise into pure sound and then potentially into music. And that's just removing the judgments. So we don't have time to do the exercise, but there's an exercise on it in the book. And there's one on the internal sound, which is, you close off the external, and then you listen to your heart. You can feel the blood pulsing through your, get quiet environment, close off your ears, and listen to the internal sounds of the body. The vibrations of your breath, not coming through your ears, but coming just in your body. And then the external, where you kind of shut out and really focus on the external. And then he talks a lot about shamanic practices, and the difference, like a shaman is, the word is derived from the Tungus people from Siberia. And the name kind of stuck, but a true shaman has been initiated within the framework of a long-standing tradition, versus shamanic practices, which we all can become available to, which are mystical practices that can change our perception of, three-dimensional reality or even spiritual reality through using some practices that have been developed either more recently or longstanding. So it's a more generic, but if someone calls themselves a shaman and they're not of an indigenous people of some type, that's kind of probably out of step a little bit in terms of true definition. Exploring altered states of consciousness, which drumming, singing, and chanting are all very powerful. Our drum circle, and there's a reason for that. The drum often can do a heartbeat and vibration, and you can feel it in your body, you know, when you're drumming, and alternated states. So brainwave entrainment is one I want to talk about, and so beta is our awake brainwaves, 14 to 20 hertz. Alpha is calm state, light meditation. That's 8 to 13 hertz. Theta is 4 to 7. That's a fairly profound meditative state. Okay, fairly deep. A lot of people experience a lot of interesting stuff in that theta waves, and then delta is deep sleep, and very skilled practitioners can be awake during delta. So
What's that frequency?
0.5 to 3.
0.5 to 3.
And they have it's not exact. They say 0.5 to 3 for delta, 4 to 7. Obviously, there's that group of 3 to 4 that's in there. That's overlap, and you know.
Yeah.
And most shamanic drumming is 0.8 to 5 cycles per second. So it's in that delta theta range that it's drawing us into. And there's again another piece on shamanic self-entrainment, but it's kind of difficult sometimes to hit those specific ones, and these come from ancient traditions, although now you get these new wave, like who's the fellow I did the talk on that it's the chiropractor. It's also a neuroscientist, chiropractor turned neuroscientist.
Joe Dispenza?
It's Dispenza. And he sells a tape or a DVD or CD or something of a tape that helps to bring you into the theta delta range, and it's that frequency. But this is a team shot. So these are often in part of a sound bath. Okay. I first experienced these in a sound bath when I was in yoga teacher training. And these are two, they're not bells, they don't have anything ringing in, but you ring them together. And it's an example of a binaural resonance. So they're different frequencies from each other. So listen for the...
I can hear it.
That is designed to be in that 0.5 to 5 range. That's binaural. And it's used, a lot of the sound healing techniques are designed in sound baths also they have a lot of different, so you'll have, you know, 2 different singing bowls. And that will cause the difference between them. If one is, see, if one of these is like 88 and the other one's 83, then you come out with a 5. They subtract, one subtracts from the other, and that other wave, that resulting wave, is in that level and is used, if you focus on that secondary wave, that can help to entrain your brain waves to a level to enhance meditative practice. And to work on having kind of spiritual and other physical calmness and healing. And so that's a lot of what's going on. Obviously also, then there's a lot of exercises in this book on vocal toning, and I have some, on the handouts, I have some toning information that goes along. Basically, you try to just kind of chill out, find kind of a quiet situation. We did this in our, do you remember in the mindfulness group, Zach, when we did, were you there when we did the humming with the chakras?
Yeah.
So that was from a book that Carrie did, which was written by this Joshua Goldman's father, John Goldman.
Okay.
And and so I put in the set on the second back page of the handouts, the 7 chakras. Those are the vowel sounds that go along with the chakras. And basically what you do is, with all of these, with both the 5 elements and the chakra practices, you start with the base, the root chakra, or the base element, which is earth, and you get a comfortable low frequency of your voice, tone of voice. And whatever that is for you, that's comfortable, that you can sustain. And then you move up incrementally. And we did it as a group. And we experienced the entrainment. We did it for like a minute or 2 at a time. And we all ended up at the same frequency at the end of the time that we were doing it. And we all got into tone. It was so cool. Yes?
I went to a workshop one time, many years ago, where we all sat in a really big circle, and then one person sat in the middle, say it was you, and we toned your name. So we started low, and then moved, and that was really cool because it was like you got messages for these people.
Yep. It's amazing. It's amazing. So we're way out of time. So we're already 5 minutes over. So we're going to go ahead and come to an end. And there's a basket up here for, and then we're going to go back.
Do we have
Are you doing announcements, John?
Oh yes, announcements. I'm sorry. Here they are. All right.
What's that?
It's in my pocket.
Meditation is tonight at 6 p.m. and it's open to everyone. The Navigating Grief Support Group is tomorrow and every Monday at 6 p.m. Everyone is welcome. Amy Burnett, and of course that, I noticed it was addressed online on Facebook, that it's not necessarily grief to death. It's a generic grief. Any kind of a loss or intense life change counts and fits right in with us. Amy Burnett will be facilitating the New Thought and World Religion class next Sunday. Topic to be determined. I can't wait.
Who is this?
Amy. Gina Andress on Sunday, July 14th, and continuing the second Sunday of each month from 4:30 to 5:30. She'll facilitate a group called Practical Prayer, Energy for Healing. Class will focus on methods of energy healing and energy centers. Participants will learn and then be able to practice these techniques. Sounds familiar? We have our new recycling containers in the fellowship hall for our July Earth Care right after the service next Sunday, July 21st. Linda Killer will be facilitating recycles, do's and don'ts. Please plan to stay and help ensure we are using our new containers properly. On Saturday, July 27th at 2 p.m., come learn the history and art of henna during a free workshop with Tamara Danko. Next community through music is July 27th at 7 p.m. That's the outdoor concerts that we have out at the stage. And those are really cool. And Sunday, July 28th at 2 p.m. is the Metaphysical Day of Learning. There'll be presentations on topics like crystals, Reiki, manifestation, and more. There'll also be a vendor market with all kinds of spiritual goodies for sale. And also, one of the things I wanted to mention is that we're still, for the community cupboard, trying to remember to bring a couple things that just every week, just try and make it a habit. It's not in the announcements, but I think it's a good thing to do. All right.
Thank you, John.